fade in. The dim glow of a single desk lamp cuts through the midnight haze of a Berlin bunker. September 1939. Adolf Hitler, his face etched with the feverish intensity of a man who believes he's rewriting destiny, leans over a hulking metal beast, a typewriter fused with gears and lights, its keys clacking like the jaws of some mechanical dragon. "Send this to the front," he snaps to his adjutant, his voice a gravelly whip. The operator's fingers dance across the Enigma machine, encoding the Führer's orders in a cipher so intricate, so impenetrable, that it promises to cloak the Third Reich's ambitions in unbreakable shadow. As the rotors whir and lamps flicker to life, spelling out a jumble of nonsense to any eavesdropper, Hitler straightens, his eyes gleaming with unshakable faith. This machine, he thinks this Enigma is the key to total war. No one will ever decipher it. No one can. But across the channel, in the quiet English countryside, a handful of forgotten minds are already unraveling the threads of his illusion. And in the winter of 1940, the world will tilt on the edge of that secret. To understand the audacity of what unfolded, we have to step back into the smoldering ruins of the Great War. It's 1918, and Europe is a graveyard of empires. The Treaty of Versailles has carved up the map like a butcher's slab, leaving Germany humiliated, seething, and desperate for tools to rise again. In a modest workshop in Berlin, a German engineer named Arthur Scherbius tinkers with a device born from the chaos of wartime espionage. Enigma wasn't invented for conquest. It started as a humble commercial cipher tool, meant to safeguard bank transfers and corporate secrets. But Scherbius, with his 3 rotating wheels packed with 26 electrical contacts each, saw potential in its labyrinthine permutations. Each keystroke sends currents snaking through the rotors, bouncing off reflectors, emerging as a seemingly random letter. Type the same message twice, and you'd get 2 wildly different codes. With over 150 quintillion possible configurations, it was a fortress of mathematics, a riddle wrapped in steel. By the early 1932, as Hitler clawed his way to power, the Wehrmacht adopted it wholesale. Every division, every U-boat, every high command telegram would soon pulse through Enigma's veins. "It's unbreakable," the German high command boasted. And why wouldn't they? Their cryptographers had layered on plugboards and daily key changes, turning a clever toy into a weapon of deception. Hitler himself, ever the showman of secrecy, embraced it as a symbol of Teutonic ingenuity. In his mind, Enigma wasn't just a machine. It was the invisible armor of the Blitzkrieg, the silent architect of Lebensraum. But secrets, like empires, have a way of cracking under pressure. Far from the beer halls of Munich, in the unassuming city of Poznan, Poland, 3 young mathematicians were about to prove the Führer wrong before he even knew they existed. It was the summer of 1932, and the air in the Bureau Cifro, Poland's cipher bureau, hung heavy with cigarette smoke and the scratch of pencils on paper. Marian Rejewski, a lanky 6-year-old with wire-rimmed glasses and a mind like a steel trap, stared at a stack of intercepted German messages. He'd been handpicked by a French spy, Gustave Bertrand, who smuggled out fragments of Enigma blueprints pilfered from a Berlin hotel room. Rejewski wasn't alone. Beside him sat Jerzy Różycki, the poetic one with a flair for patterns, and Henryk Zygalski, the quiet engineer whose perforated sheets would soon become legend. They were fresh from university, barely out of their tweed jackets, tasked with decoding the green cipher, the commercial version the Germans had foolishly adapted for military use. Imagine the scene. A cramped office in Warsaw's Saxon palace, rain pattering against the windows like impatient fingers. Rejewski pores over the intercepts, noticing something the Germans missed a repetition in the daily keys. A cribs, as cryptographers call them, where mundane phrases like Heil Hitler betrayed the structure beneath. It wasn't brute force. It was pure logic, permutations treated like permutations in group theory. By December 1932, after months of feverish calculation, Rejewski later recalled solving equations by hand until his fingers cramped. They'd reconstructed Enigma from shadows. No machine yet, just math on paper. 60,000 possible rotor wirings narrowed to 3, then 1. "We had it," Rejewski would say decades later, his voice steady but eyes distant. The beast revealed itself. The Poles built their first Bombe, a 6-sided drum of relays that tested settings like a mechanical bloodhound. It worked, sporadically, decoding messages that whispered of German rearmament, troop movements along the Polish border. But as Hitler annexed Austria in 1938 and Czechoslovakia in 1939, the Enigma evolved new rotors, plugboards that multiplied settings to 150 million. The Bombe strained, overheating in Warsaw's humid summers. Różycki drowned in the Vistula during a frantic evacuation in 1939, a loss that haunted his comrades like a ghost in the wires. Zygalski escaped to France, but Rejewski knew. Poland couldn't fight this alone. The handover came on a sweltering July day in 1939 at Pyry Forest outside Warsaw. British and French codebreakers, stuffy suits from MI6 and the 2e Bureau gathered under the pines, sweating through their collars as Polish officers unveiled the unthinkable. Rejewski, chain-smoking, demonstrated the Bombe on a captured Enigma, decrypting a sample in minutes. "Gentlemen," he said, his accent thick with urgency, "this is your weapon now." The Brits, led by Alistair Denniston, blinked in disbelief. Their own efforts at government code and cipher school had yielded scraps. Now, here was the skeleton key. Turing wasn't there yet. He was still lecturing at King's College, Cambridge, pondering universal machines in abstract. But the Poles' gift blueprints, replicas, Zygalski sheets perforated like lace ignited a spark. As German panzers rolled into Poland on September 1st, the world erupted. Warsaw burned. Rejewski fled underground. But those blueprints crossed the channel in diplomatic pouches, a desperate lifeline from a dying ally. Meanwhile, in the rolling Buckinghamshire hills, a Victorian manor house slumbered under autumn fog. Bletchley Park wasn't chosen for its grandeur, once a country estate for Edwardian teas. Now, it squatted awkwardly amid lakes and fake ruins, its red brick facade hiding a warren of hastily erected wooden huts. Commander Alistair Denniston, a tweedy naval man with a mustache like a broom, arrived in August 1939, transforming the place into the nerve center of Britain's code-breaking war. GC and CS, they called it officially, but whispers dubbed it the Goose Club for its gaggle of eccentric recruits. By September, as Chamberlain's Peace in Our Time crumbled into air raid sirens, the park buzzed with unlikely warriors, crossword puzzle champions poached from the Times, chess grandmasters, even a few disgruntled linguists. Women trickled in too: Joan Clark, Mavis Beatty, sharp-eyed wrens, and Athos, who would soon sort the chaff from the code. The air smelled of fresh paint and damp earth, mingled with the acrid tang of soldering irons as engineers jury-rigged listening posts. Enter Alan Turing, stage left, on a bicycle that seemed too small for his gangly frame. It was September 4th, 1939, and the 6-year-old mathematician pedaled up the gravel drive, trousers cuffed against the mud, gas mask dangling absurdly from the handlebars. Turing wasn't the brooding genius of legend, no. He was awkward, brilliant, and utterly human, with a lock of dark hair flopping over one eye and a habit of mumbling to himself like a man arguing with ghosts. Born in 1912 to civil servant parents in London, he'd survived a lonely childhood at Sherborne School, where bullies mocked his soft voice and limp handshake, a remnant, some said, of childhood illness. But in the cloisters of Cambridge, Turing bloomed. His 1,936 paper on the Turing machine sketched the blueprint of modern computing, a theoretical beast that could simulate any algorithm. Now, war called him to the practical. Denniston had recruited him months earlier, over tea at the Athenaeum Club, dangling the Enigma puzzle like forbidden fruit. "It's a mathematical problem," Turing replied, eyes lighting up, "and mathematics always yields." Hut 8 became his kingdom, a drafty Nissen hut on the estate's edge, walls papered with intercepts fluttering like trapped moths. Turing arrived with the Polish blueprints under one arm and a pillowcase of clothes under the other. His team, a motley crew of Oxford dons and raw recruits, including Peter Hilton, a teenage prodigy who later recalled Turing's childlike glee over a breakthrough. The work was Sisyphean daily keys changed at midnight, messages arriving in greasy sheaves from Y-service radio vans parked in hedgerows. German operators, sloppy in their haste, betrayed hints, wetter for weather reports, annex for anxious acknowledgments. But the naval Enigma, the beast they hunted most, was a hydra, 8 rotors, plugboard permutations that laughed at manual trial and error. Turing dove in, chain-smoking Turkish cigarettes, his desk a chaos of graph paper and half-eaten apples. "We must build something," he urged Denniston, sketching furiously. The Polish Bombe was the seed. Turing grafted onto it, envisioning a machine that could crib known plaintext against ciphertext, winnowing billions of settings to thousands. Winter gripped Bletchley like a vice. Rationed coal hissed in potbelly stoves, frost etching patterns on window panes as codebreakers huddled in overcoats, breath fogging the air. Turing's prototype, dubbed the British Bombe, took shape in Fitz relays scavenged from post office teleprinters, funded by a begrudging treasury. He cycled to London for meetings, once arriving with lips smeared blue from eating berries off a bush, oblivious to stares. His colleagues adored and despaired him. Alan would vanish for days, recalled Jack Good, a fellow mathematician, emerging with solutions scrawled on napkins, then vanish again to feed the ducks. But beneath the quirks burned a relentless fire. Turing wrestled with cribs, guessing phrases like Gute Nacht from routine traffic and the diagonal board, a logical trap to snare the plugboard's secrets. By early 1940, as Hitler's panzers chewed through France, the hut thrummed with tension. Intercepts piled up, U-boat wolf packs coiling in the Atlantic, Luftwaffe squadrons massing for spring. Churchill, newly minted prime minister, paced Whitehall, demanding anything to turn the tide. And then, on March 10th, 1940, in the witching hours after a midnight key change, it happened. Hut 8's Bombe, a 7-foot behemoth of whirring drums and clicking pins, its 36 Enigma simulacra spinning in eerie unison, ground to a halt. Lights blinked, relays chattered, and there on the output drum, plain text bloomed like dawn through fog. A Luftwaffe weather report, clear as church bells. The ring settings, cracked, Turing whispered, slumping against the machine, a rare smile cracking his face. It wasn't the naval code, not yet, but the Air Force variant, a vital artery in the Wehrmacht's body. Messages poured in, squadron deployments over Norway, fuel dumps in the Low Countries. Denniston rushed the decrypts to London, code-named Ultra, to bury them in Blandery. Hitler, poring over his own Enigma-spun maps in the Reich Chancellery, issued orders blind to the eyes now peering back. The Führer trusted his miracle machine implicitly. In a 1940 speech, he hailed German science as invincible, Enigma, its crown jewel. Little did he know, Across the sea, a slip of a mathematician had just pried open the lock. But this was only the first fracture. As spring thawed, the Ardennes and the phony war shattered into thunder. The real hunt began for the U-boat Enigma, the silent strangler of Allied shipping. What Bletchley didn't know yet was how close the Germans were to spotting the leak, how one misplaced crib could doom them all. And in the shadows of Hut 8, Turing paced, apple core in hand, plotting the next assault.